What happened in Edmonton's real estate market for the month of April? In this video, we're going to dive in and take a look at what's been happening in the last 30 days of April. It's spring market, and in Edmonton, spring market typically starts as soon as the weather starts to warm up, and sure enough, April had warmer weather. Now, if you've been following along, you'll notice that the sales have been pretty high, even starting in February of this year, and we're starting to see sales continue to be holding strong. Now, in this video, we're going to talk about single-family homes and condos because the entire inventory we're looking at. Every Tuesday, I hop on live and we talk and focus just on the single-family home market because we kind of take a look at what happened last year, this year, give you some insights and give you some insights as a buyer and as a seller and as a homeowner. Now, let's dive into what happened in April. In April, you'll see that we had 2,897 new listings. Now, this is higher than it was last month and from last year. Year to date, we've had over 9,000 listings come on the market in Edmonton's real estate market. So if you take a look at that in terms of percentages, we had 9% from last year higher and just over 10% from the month prior. Very normal that more and more listings come on the market. We'll probably start to see a slowdown in, I would think, June, July. So these are April stats. I think in May, we're still gonna have the higher number of new listings coming on. Now, the big question is, how many of those are selling? So if you take a look at the number of solds for the month of April, we had 1,845 homes sell in the month of April, which was higher than the month before in March, but lower than the year before. So take a look at the year-to-date sales. We've had just over 6,000. So definitely a little bit slower than last year, seeing as how we are 13% lower than last year at this time. And so that is really interesting. A lot of people waiting for interest rates to drop because last year's interest rates were higher than they are this year. But the sales don't match. If in theory people were waiting for lower interest rates to spend and buy, they don't seem to be around. So it's really important to know that when you are buying a home, it's not just about the interest rate. Obviously, the prices of homes have changed in the last year, and they're different than they were last year. Now, the market itself is very different. As a whole, as we look at the entire market, days on market continues to not be bad. The detached days on market is 30 versus 34 last year. Semi-detached is 26 versus 30. Row houses, townhouses, 25 versus 31. Condominiums, 38 over 42 for apartment condominiums. And you'll see that everything's been still moving quicker than it was last year, but there's definitely not as many sales as we had last year. Now, when we take a look at the average selling price, where does everything fall in? Well, if we take a look at the average single family detached home, you're looking at just under 600,000, which we're at $580,000. And month over month, that's a 1% increase, but compared to last year at this time, it was 10% higher than last year. So that's correct. If you were looking at a home in the low fives last year, that will have changed in the price point you're seeing today. Now, if you watch us on Tuesdays, you'll notice that we talk a lot about what each specific price point does, because between the 3 to 4 and the 4 to 5 and the 5 to 6, they have different percentages of selling. Whereas last year at this time, everything was moving. So make sure you go and take a look at that market stats update because it's really important to know what are your odds of selling in your price point and in your neighborhood. It's very different than you can't compare to someone selling in 4s if you're selling in the 7s. Now the semi-detached average price is $433,000. It's a slight increase month over month, just like the detached homes, and a 5.4% increase from last year. For townhouses, we're sitting at $304,000 for the average price, slightly lower than the month before and just a little bit higher than last year. So average prices in Edmonton are still very affordable if you're moving from out of province, whether it be Ontario or BC, or maybe you're just migrating in Alberta, maybe you're coming from Calgary. Edmonton definitely has more affordable pricing, and I suspect the pricing is actually going to continue to soften. What that means is I don't believe it's going to go backwards in time. So a house for $580, I don't think is going to all of a sudden be worth $500 next year or even at the end of this year. When I say soften, it just means we'll see less multiple offers. We'll start to see less homes and less sales. So more of a balanced market, which means buyers don't have the upper edge, they can't go low ball, and sellers don't have the upper edge in terms of you can't just price so high. There actually is a little bit of a medium. So we're seeing that in the 600,000 plus, and I believe that we're gonna start seeing that in the 5 to 6 soon, and then the 4 to 5. So right now, your odds of selling in the 4 to 5 is extremely high. It's like over 96%. Everything that's coming on the market is selling, whereas when you look at the 5 to 6, it goes down to 56%. So still a lot higher than the other ones because they're dropping down to 30, but the pattern is gonna continue on. Now, I don't think it's gonna drop necessarily so low where it's gonna be a buyer's market, but I do think that the pendulum is slowly swinging back. When we hit this seller's market, there was no swing or move. It went from buyer's market all the way to a seller's market because of all of the different situations that was happening with our global pandemic, with the economy, with the uncertainty, with all the things. It just moved all the way over there, and also super low interest rates, like really ridiculous, right? Do you remember, like under 2%? And so now that things are still uncertain, I mean, that's the reality, is that things are always uncertain. I do think that things are more balancing itself out, and people do still need to live in homes, whether it's renting or owning a home with a mortgage. And you have to understand that now renting is a lot more challenging because there's not as many out there, and the rental rates have gone up compared to what they were 4 or 5 years ago. So if you're wondering what on earth does that mean for you, make sure to hop on live on Tuesdays, ask your questions, put your comments in there and I'll answer, or you can reach out to us. Thanks so much for watching. We'll see you next month when we talk all about the month of May and what happened in Edmonton's real estate market.